The ancient temple rose from the jungle floor like a forgotten dream, its obsidian walls gleaming under the harsh sun of Kepler 186. Dr. Aria Kingston wiped sweat from her brow, her dark hair plastered to her neck as she studied the alien glyphs that covered the entrance. After 15 years of interstellar archaeology, she'd never seen anything quite like this. "Remarkable preservation," she muttered, running her gloved hand over the smooth surface. The temple predated human spaceflight by at least 10,000 years, yet it looked as if it had been built yesterday. Her team had already returned to the base camp, leaving her alone with the discovery that would define her career, or end it. The entrance sealed behind her with a soft hiss as she stepped inside. Her helmet's lights illuminated corridors that hadn't seen light in millennia, revealing more of the flowing script that covered every surface. Unlike other alien ruins she'd studied, these writings seemed to pulse with a faint, bioluminescent glow. Recording log entry 47. Aria spoke into her suit's comm. The internal structure appears to be a single piece of carved obsidian. No visible seams or construction marks. Temperature holding steady at 20 degrees Celsius despite external readings of 45. Atmospheric composition within human tolerance. She carefully removed her helmet, breathing in air that tasted metallic and ancient. Her footsteps echoed as she proceeded deeper into the temple, following the increasingly urgent pattern of the glyphs. They seemed to be telling a story, or perhaps giving a warning. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that took her breath away. In the center, suspended in a column of shimmering energy, floated what appeared to be a massive feline creature. Its fur was darker than the obsidian walls, seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. The creature's form shifted subtly, as if it wasn't quite solid. "My God," Aria whispered, approaching the energy field. The being had to be at least 12 feet long, with powerful limbs and a tail that ended in an array of crystalline structures. Its eyes were closed, but there was no doubt in her mind that it was alive. The glyphs around the chamber told its story. The creature was called a Shadowmancer, a shape-shifting being of immense power that had been imprisoned by the architects, an ancient race that had vanished from the galaxy. But why? The more Aria translated, the more her heart raced. The Shadowmancer hadn't been imprisoned for being dangerous. It had been imprisoned for refusing to be a weapon. The architects had wanted to use its power for conquest, but it had resisted, choosing captivity over violence. A soft chime from her suit warned of approaching ships. She checked the readings and her blood ran cold. 3 unmarked vessels had entered orbit, and they weren't responding to identification requests. Someone else knew about this place. Aria's hands flew over her tablet, translating faster. The stasis field wasn't just holding the creature, it was slowly killing it. The architects had designed it as a fail-safe, ensuring their weapon would either serve them or die. After thousands of years, the field was finally reaching critical strength. "I can't let this happen," she muttered, her fingers tracing the control panel she'd discovered. Everything in her training told her to wait, to document, to call for backup. But there was no time. The approaching ships would reach the surface within 20 minutes. The release sequence was complex, requiring multiple confirmations. With each step, the energy field fluctuated, and the creature within stirred. As the final sequence initiated, its eyes snapped open, revealing irises of swirling silver and gold. The field collapsed with a thunderous crack, and the Shadowmancer dropped gracefully to the floor. It turned its gaze to Aria, who stood her ground despite her pounding heart. The creature's form rippled, its size diminishing slightly as it studied her. "I know you can understand me," Aria said softly, raising her empty hands. I know what they wanted to do to you, and I know you refused. I'm not here to control you. I'm here to help. The Shadowmancer's head tilted, its ears flicking forward. Then, to Aria's amazement, it spoke, not in words, but in thoughts that formed directly in her mind. You freed me, it said, its mental voice carrying notes of curiosity and caution. Why? Because imprisonment without cause is wrong, Aria replied firmly. And because we're about to have company that I don't think either of us wants to meet. The creature's form shifted again, its tail swishing as it processed her words. You risk much for a being you do not know. I know enough, Aria said, checking her tablet again. 15 minutes until they land. I have a ship hidden in the valley. If you want to leave, we need to go now. The Shadowmancer stepped closer, its massive head level with hers. Its scent was like ozone before a storm, its presence both terrifying and magnificent. You would help me escape. Yes, Aria said simply. But it's your choice. Freedom means choosing your own path. For a moment, the creature was silent. Then its form rippled one final time, settling into a slightly smaller size that would be able to move through the corridors. I am called Zephyr, it projected. And I choose to trust you, Aria Kingston. The sound of distant engines made the temple's walls vibrate. Without another word, Aria turned and ran toward the exit, the Shadowmancer keeping pace beside her. As they emerged into the jungle, she couldn't help but smile. Her career in conventional archaeology might be over, but something told her this was the beginning of a much greater adventure. Aria's research vessel wasn't much to look at, a retrofitted Horizon-class explorer barely large enough for a crew of 3. But as she sprinted up the boarding ramp with Zephyr at her side, it was the most beautiful ship in the galaxy. Authorization override Kingston 7 Delta, she gasped, sliding into the pilot's seat. The engines hummed to life as Zephyr prowled the cramped cabin, its crystalline tail structures catching the light. Your pursuers, Zephyr projected. They are not your government's forces. No, Aria confirmed, engaging the launch sequence. The Stellar Archaeological Council doesn't use unmarked ships or jam communication frequencies. The vessel shuddered as it lifted off. They're probably from the Helios Foundation, private collectors who think anything alien should be in their vaults. Through the view screen, 3 sleek black ships descended through the atmosphere, their designs unlike anything in known space. Aria's hands tightened on the controls. This might get rough. You fear them, Zephyr observed, moving closer to her seat. I fear what they represent, Aria replied, pushing the engines to full power. People who think they can own whatever they want, who treat discoveries as commodities. They've been following my research for years. The first shot from the pursuing vessels flashed past their bow. Aria banked hard, using the dense jungle canopy for cover. Her ship wasn't built for combat, but she knew this planet's terrain. She'd spent months mapping it. You are different from the architects, Zephyr projected, its mental voice thoughtful. They sought to control through force. You offer choice. Freedom's meaningless without choice, Aria said, freeing their ship through a narrow canyon. Speaking of which, I'm choosing to use that ravine ahead for cover. Hang on. The ship plunged into the gorge, skimming over a river of liquid methane. 2 of the pursuing vessels followed, while the third maintained a higher altitude. Aria smiled grimly, just as she'd hoped. There's a cavern coming up, she said. It'll be tight, but... You intend to use the methane deposits, Zephyr interrupted, its silver gold eyes gleaming. Clever. Aria's grin widened. Notice that, did you? She pulled up sharply just before the cavern entrance, while simultaneously launching a research probe behind them. The pursuing ships, moving too fast to adjust, fired at the probe. The resulting explosion ignited the methane river, creating a massive fireball that engulfed both vessels. "That'll slow them down," Arya muttered, pushing the ship toward the upper atmosphere. But the third one. The entire ship rocked as their remaining pursuer scored a direct hit. Warning lights flashed across the console. "Your vessel is damaged," Zephyr observed calmly. "The next hit will disable your engines." "Thanks for the update," Arya said through gritted teeth. "Any helpful suggestions?" The Shadowmancer's form rippled. "I could go out there." "What?" "No." The vacuum wooled. Arya stopped as she realized what she was saying. "You can survive in space, can't you?" "I am not bound by your physical limitations," Zephyr confirmed. "But I will need your trust." Another shot rocked the ship. Arya looked into those ancient, swirling eyes and made her decision. "Emergency airlock override," she commanded. "Cycling in 3, 2, 1. Zephyr's form became fluid, flowing like liquid shadow through the airlock. Arya watched in amazement as the creature expanded in the vacuum, becoming a massive, wings-like shape that enveloped their pursuer's ship. The enemy vessel's weapons fired frantically, but the shots passed harmlessly through Zephyr's ethereal form. Then the Shadowmancer contracted sharply, crushing the ship's weapons erased like paper. With surgical precision, it disabled the engines and communication systems before returning to Arya's vessel. As the airlock cycled, Arya let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Zephyr reformed beside her, its size once again adapted to the cabin. "They live," it projected, "though they will require rescue." "You didn't kill them," Arya said softly, "even after everything they tried to do." "Death is rarely the answer we seek," Zephyr replied. "The architects never understood this. Perhaps that is why they feared me." Arya programmed a course away from the planet, her mind racing. "They'll have sent a message to their superiors. We need to disappear for a while, find somewhere safe to plan our next move." "You say we," Zephyr noted. "You would continue to accompany me." "Well," Arya said, turning to face the creature, "I did just torch my career and make some powerful enemies. Besides, you're the greatest archaeological discovery in human history. The scientist in me has about 10,000 questions." The Shadowmancer's form rippled in what Arya was beginning to recognize as amusement. "And if I choose not to be studied?" "Then you choose not to be studied," Arya said simply. "But I'd still like to help you stay free, and maybe learn why the architects were so afraid of what you can do." Zephyr was silent for a long moment. The architects feared what they could not control, it finally projected. "But there is more to my imprisonment than even they knew. Truths that were buried with my people. Your people." Arya leaned forward. "There are more like you." There were. Zephyr's mental voice carried an edge of ancient sorrow. "Whether any survive, that is what I must discover. With your help, perhaps." Arya looked at the vast expanse of stars before them, her heart racing with the possibilities. "Where do we start?" "First," Zephyr projected, "we must visit the place of my birth. The world your kind calls Kepler 62. There are secrets there that must be uncovered." Kepler 62e. Arya's eyes widened. "That's deep in restricted space. Getting there won't be easy." "Few worthwhile journeys are," Zephyr replied. "But I sense you enjoy a challenge, Arya Kingston." Arya laughed, plotting the first leg of their course. "You know, for an ancient shape-shifting being, you're pretty good at reading humans." "Perhaps," Zephyr projected, settling beside her chair. Humans and shadowmancers are not as different as the architects believed. As their ship disappeared into hyperspace, Aria couldn't help but feel that she was on the verge of something unprecedented, not just the discovery of a lifetime, but perhaps the key to understanding humanity's place in a much larger cosmic story. The quantum drive's hum filled the small ship as Aria studied the star charts, trying to plot a safe route through restricted space. A week had passed since their escape, and each day brought new revelations about her extraordinary companion. Zephyr lay curled near the navigation console, its form occasionally rippling like dark water. The Shadowmancer had spent hours teaching Aria about its species' unique abilities, demonstrating transformations that defied physics as she understood it. "So you don't just change shape," Aria said, marking another potential patrol route on her map. "You can alter your molecular structure completely." "Our essence remains constant," Zephyr projected, rising gracefully. "But matter, energy, space, these are more fluid than your science suggests." The creature's form shifted, becoming transparent like smoke, then solid again. "We do not change what we are. We simply express different aspects of our nature." Aria watched in fascination as Zephyr demonstrated, its crystalline tail structures glowing softly. "And the crystals, they're part of you. They are our connection to the void between stars," Zephyr explained. "Through them, we channel energies your instruments cannot detect." Its mental voice grew softer. The architects tried to harness this power. They did not understand that it cannot be controlled, only guided. A warning light flashed on the console. Aria quickly checked the readings. "Speaking of control, we've got company. Patrol ship, coming in fast. Imperial." Zephyr moved to study the scanner. "Worse, Helios Foundation again." Aria's fingers flew over the controls. "They're persistent. I'll give them that." The pursuing vessel was larger than their last attackers, bristling with weapons. As Aria watched, it launched a series of probes that began circling their ship. "They seek to trap us," Zephyr observed. "These devices will create a containment field." "Can you disable them like before?" "No need." Zephyr's form began to pulse with energy. "Watch." The crystalline structures on its tail suddenly blazed with light. Through the view screen, Aria saw space itself seem to ripple. The probes sparked and went dark, drifting harmlessly past. "What did you just do?" "I reminded space of its true nature," Zephyr projected, sounding almost amused. "That technology assumes reality is fixed. It isn't." The pursuing ship opened fire, but Zephyr wasn't finished. Its entire form began to glow, and suddenly the stars outside seemed to bend. Aria felt a strange sensation, like reality was folding around them. When it passed, they were several light years from their previous position. That's impossible," Aria whispered, checking their coordinates. "You can't just jump through space without a drive." "Impossible is a human concept," Zephyr replied, though its form wavered slightly from the effort. "The void remembers my people. It responds to our call." Aria sat back, her mind reeling. The architects. This is what they really wanted, isn't it? Not just shape-shifting, but this. Yes, Zephyr's mental voice carried centuries of weight. They sought to weaponize our connection to space itself, to turn the very fabric of reality into a tool of war. But you refused. We all refused, and so they hunted us, imprisoned us, studied us. Zephyr moved closer, its silver-gold eyes meeting hers. "But they could not break our will. Freedom of choice, as you said, is everything." Aria reached out slowly, placing her hand on Zephyr's side. The creature's form was warm, vibrating with energy she couldn't comprehend. Your people. You think some of them might have survived, hidden themselves. More than that, Zephyr projected. I believe they found a way to fight back. The Architect's extinction was no accident. What do you mean? In my prison, I dreamed, touched other minds across the void. There were echoes, signs. Zephyr's form rippled with intensity. On Kepler 62e, there is a place of power, a nexus where my people gathered. If any survive, they will have left a message there. A new alert sounded, another ship approaching, but this one was different, massive, ancient. Architect technology, Zephyr projected sharply. But that's not possible. Unless. Unless what? Unless they weren't all destroyed. Unless some survived, hidden, waiting. The Shadowmancer's form coiled with tension. Aria, what we face is greater than the Helios Foundation. The descendants of the architects still exist, and they have never stopped searching for us. The massive ship drew closer, its design unlike anything in human records. Aria felt a chill as she realized what this meant. They'd been hiding in restricted space all this time. That's why it's restricted. Yes, and now they know I am free. Zephyr's mental voice carried both determination and concern. Aria, you must understand. Helping me further puts you at risk beyond measure. These beings have shaped galactic politics from the shadows for millennia. They will stop at nothing to recapture me. Aria looked at the ancient ship, then at her extraordinary companion. In the short time they'd been together, she'd seen wonders that defied explanation. But more than that, she'd found something she never expected. A friend who valued choice and freedom as much as she did. Well, she said, starting to plot a new course. They'll have to go through me first. I didn't free you just to let some ancient conspiracy lock you up again. Zephyr's form rippled with what she now recognized as affection. You continue to surprise me, Aria Kingston. Good, she replied, engaging the quantum drive. Because I have a crazy idea about how we're going to reach that nexus of yours. How do you feel about stealing an architect ship? The bridge of the stolen architect vessel hummed with ancient power as Aria and Zephyr approached Kepler 62. The planet's twin suns cast a purple-gold glow across its crystalline surface, illuminating structures that defied conventional geometry. There, Aria pointed to a formation that resembled a spiral of liquid metal frozen in time. Those energy readings match your crystal signatures. The nexus, Zephyr confirmed, its form shifting with anticipation. Where my people made their last stand. They had barely escaped the architect ship's original crew, succeeding only through Zephyr's incredible abilities and Aria's quick thinking. Now, as they descended through the atmosphere, both knew they were approaching a moment of truth. The nexus rose before them, its spiraling towers pulsing with the same bioluminescent energy Aria had seen in Zephyr's crystals. They landed on a platform that seemed to form itself beneath their ship, responding to Zephyr's presence. Aria, Zephyr projected softly as they prepared to disembark. What lies within? It may change everything. I'm ready, she replied, though her heart raced. The interior of the nexus was like stepping into a living dream. The walls rippled with patterns of light, and the air itself seemed to sing with ancient power. Zephyr led the way, its form growing more luminescent with each step. They reached a vast chamber where countless crystal formations converged at a central point. As Zephyr approached, they began to glow. The memories of my people, Zephyr projected. Our final testament. The crystals erupted in light, and suddenly Aria saw it all. the true history of the Shadowmancers. They weren't just shapeshifters or spacebenders. They were guardians, chosen by the universe itself to maintain the balance of reality. The architects hadn't just sought to weaponize them. They had tried to seize control of existence itself. The Shadowmancers' resistance wasn't just about freedom. It was about preventing the collapse of all creation. But there was more. The surviving Shadowmancers hadn't just defeated the architects. They had spread themselves across the cosmos, becoming part of the fabric of space-time, ensuring that no species could ever again threaten the fundamental laws of existence. "Now you understand," Zephyr projected, turning to Aria, "why I must make a choice. My people call to me. I could join them, become one with the cosmos itself." Aria felt her heart constrict. "You'd leave." Or, Zephyr continued, its form rippling with emotion, "I could choose another path. My time with you has shown me something my people may have forgotten, that there is value in walking among the younger races, in teaching, guiding, protecting through presence rather than abstraction." Before Aria could respond, alarms blared. The descendants of the architects had found them, their ships darkening the sky above the nexus. "Zephyr," Aria said urgently, "whatever you choose, choose quickly." The Shadowmancer looked at the crystal matrix, then at Aria. In that moment, its form shifted to reveal its truest self, a being of pure energy and infinite possibility. "My people chose to become cosmic law," it projected. "I choose to remain its guardian." With that decision, Zephyr's crystals blazed with power. The invading ships found themselves caught in a web of altered space, their weapons useless against forces they couldn't comprehend. "Your kind's time has passed." Zephyr's voice echoed not just in Aria's mind, but across space itself. "The universe chose its protectors, and we chose freedom. Accept this truth, or cease to exist." The descendants of the architects fled, their ancient ambitions finally broken by the very power they had sought to control. In the silence that followed, Aria looked at her companion, her friend, with new understanding. So what now? Zephyr's form settled back into its familiar panther-like shape, though now Aria could see the cosmic energy that had always flowed beneath its surface. Now it projected warmly, "We continue what you started when you first freed me. We explore, we learn, we protect." And most importantly, its silver gold eyes met hers. "We choose our own path together." Aria smiled, reaching out to touch Zephyr's crystalline structures. Where once she had seen merely beauty, she now recognized the infinite possibilities they represented. "Together," she agreed. As they walked back to their ship, the nexus pulsing behind them, both human and Shadowmancer knew they had started something new, a partnership that would bridge the gap between cosmic law and mortal understanding, between duty and freedom, between power and choice. The universe had its eternal guardians in the ascended Shadowmancers. But now it also had something perhaps more valuable, proof that different species, different forms of life, could choose to understand each other, protect each other, and forge a future neither could achieve alone. And somewhere in the depths of space, reality itself smiled at the choice that had been made. 5 years later, the observation deck of the Stellar Academy hummed with excited whispers as students from a dozen worlds gathered for their first lecture. Aria stood at the podium, a familiar dark shape lounging gracefully beside her. "Welcome to Advanced Xenarchaeology," she began, smiling at the eager faces. "I'm Dr. Kingston, and this is my colleague, Zephyr." The Shadowmancer's silver gold eyes surveyed the room as students gasped and murmured. Over the years, they had become something of a legend, the human archaeologist and the cosmic guardian who had changed humanity's understanding of the universe. They are young, Zephyr projected privately to Aria, full of questions and dreams. Like someone else I once knew, she whispered back, remembering her own burning curiosity that had led her to that temple years ago. Their partnership had transformed galactic society. The descendants of the architects had retreated to the farthest reaches of space, their ancient ambitions finally laid to rest. The Helios Foundation had been exposed and disbanded, its collections returned to their rightful places. But more importantly, they had opened new paths of understanding between species. Zephyr's choice to remain in corporeal form, to teach and guide rather than ascend, had inspired others of its kind to emerge from hiding. Each Shadowmancer made their own choice. Some joined their ascended kin in maintaining cosmic law, while others chose to walk among the younger races, sharing their wisdom. Today, Aria continued her lecture. We're going to discuss the true nature of archaeological preservation. It's not just about protecting artifacts or recording history. It's about understanding the choices that shaped our universe and learning from them. Zephyr's form rippled with approval as she spoke. Their own choice, to remain together, to teach, to protect, had created ripples they were still discovering. Their bond had deepened into something beyond friendship or partnership, a connection that bridged the gap between mortal and cosmic understanding. After class, they stood together on the Academy's highest tower, watching the triple sunset. The crystal structures in Zephyr's tail caught the light, casting rainbow patterns across the deck. "Any regrets?" Aria asked, as she sometimes did, about choosing this path. Zephyr's mental voice carried warmth. "Never. The universe has its eternal guardians. But it also needs those who remember that the greatest power lies not in cosmic law, but in the choices we make every day." Aria smiled, resting her hand on Zephyr's side. Below them, students hurried between classes, humans and aliens alike, all seeking understanding. Above them, the stars beckoned with endless possibilities. "So," she said, "where should we take them for their first field expedition?" Zephyr's form rippled with amusement. "I hear there's an interesting temple on Kepler 186 F." "Oh no," Aria laughed. "We are not starting them with ancient prison breaks." "Why not?" "It worked out rather well the first time." As they bantered, a shooting star streaked across the sky. Or perhaps it was one of Zephyr's ascended kin, watching over the universe they had sworn to protect. Either way, it reminded them both of the truth they had discovered together. That sometimes the greatest adventures, the deepest bonds, and the most profound changes come not from cosmic power or ancient knowledge, but from a simple choice to trust, to care, and to face the unknown together. The end.